present. May 7th, 2025. Operation Sindoor. More than 15 BrahMos missiles struck before breakfast. Terrorist camps, air bases, radar installations, and ammunition depots vanished in minutes. Pakistan's Chinese-made radar systems never stood a chance. The prophecy had come true. But no missile reaches destiny without first proving itself in fire. In a modern command room, glowing maps pulse like living nerves. Officers stand in silence. And in that silence, one name returns to the nation's imagination. BrahMos. Not as a drawing, not as a promise, as a proven capability. A missile that endured years of test ranges, storms, deserts, hangars, and skies. Now standing as something real. No missile earns trust by accident. It earns trust by surviving the hardest questions. Can it fly? Can it hold control? Can it serve the user? Can it perform when the world turns hostile? And for BrahMos, one of those questions was asked in a storm. Once upon a time, Integrated Test Range, Chandipur on Sea, near Balasore, Odisha. June 12, 2001. A cyclone was tearing across the range. Everyone said it was too dangerous, but Admiral Arun Prakash, the user, was standing there. Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai looked at them and gave the order. We are firing. The missile was ready. The weather was not. At zero, BrahMos lifted through the violent wind and performed like a textbook missile. The storm had become its proving ground. That single launch was not just a test. It was the moment BrahMos had to earn trust. Because a launch proves a missile can fly. It does not prove a soldier will trust it with his life. But even that storm was not the true beginning. To find the beginning, we must go further back, before the name, before the agreement signed in Moscow on February 12, 1998, before the launcher, before the storm. Harvard, 1991. Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai was far from the test range, far from the launcher, far from the noise of India's missile program. On the screen, the Gulf War unfolded. Low-flying Tomahawk cruise missiles sliced across the desert, destroying radars before the enemy could react. For Pillai as a missile man, it was a lesson. Low-flying Tomahawk cruise missiles rewrote the rules of conflict. Silent, precise, unstoppable. Tomahawk was not the dream, but an alarm bell. It showed what India could not afford to ignore. And somewhere deep in his mind, Kalam's question returned, quiet, unrelenting, dangerous. When will India become the first country? That question changed what Pillai was seeing. The Gulf War was not only showing him a weapon, it was showing him a gap in India's future. A normal cruise missile could answer the category, but it could not answer Kalam's question. The real challenge would be harder. Not just a cruise missile, a ramjet-powered supersonic cruise missile, a machine that would not crawl through the sky, but breathe at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. Tomahawk gave the warning. Kalam gave the question. Pillai saw the gap, and the answer would begin thousands of kilometers away, behind a door in Moscow.
Work. Now, the propulsion system.
15 kilometers east of the Kremlin, a city that did not appear on most maps because it was not supposed to. Winter, 1992. The Soviet Union was 13 months dead. The flag had changed, the money had gone. But inside NPO Mashinostroyenia, the laboratories were still cold. The engines were still there, and the men who had spent their lives building things the world was not permitted to see were still arriving in the mornings. For now. Because something was loosening quietly through the corridors. Salaries had become uncertain, and when a man's salary becomes uncertain, 40 years of classified loyalty has a way of becoming uncertain with it. Engineers were beginning to drift west, toward China, toward whoever would still pay. 40 years of Soviet missile expertise, some of the finest in the world, was beginning to scatter. Not noisily, not dramatically, the way a fire dies in a cold room, slowly, in the dark, without announcement. This was the particular danger of that winter. Not that the knowledge had gone, but that it might. And once scattered, no one could predict where it would take root. Outside, -10. The grey Moscow sky pressing flat on everything beneath it. The camera finds him in the corridor. Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai walked through a corridor that smelled of cold metal and decades of ambition that had never been made public. At the end of that corridor, a door. Behind it, not a drawing, not a proposal, an engine. The Director General of NPO Mashinostroyenia, Dr. Yefremov, did not believe in preambles. He showed Pillai a ramjet engine, supersonic, and then, as simply as a man stating something he has known for 20 years, "We are the only people in the whole world to have a supersonic engine. If you use that engine, your cruise missile will become a supersonic cruise missile." Pillai had watched the Gulf War from a Harvard residence the previous year. He had seen what a cruise missile could do, arriving before anyone could react, destroying the asset before the defender even knew what to defend against. He had understood precisely what India did not have. Now, in a cold room in a city that did not appear on most maps, beside an engine that was not supposed to exist, he was looking at the reason India could have it. The paperwork would open the door. Engineering still had to walk through it. What do you call something that has never existed before? It had first been conceived as a weapon of the sea, so both sides agreed the name should carry water. The Indian team brought a river, Brahmaputra. Born high on the Tibetan plateau, descending through Himalayan gorges, then widening across the plains of Assam. A river of force, memory, and scale, son of Brahma. The Russian side brought a river of their own, Moskva. Not the vast Volga, not the imperial Neva, the quieter river, the one running through the city where the partnership had been born, passed every day, often unnoticed, because it had always been there. Across those meetings, syllables were tried, compressed, rejected. None felt right, until one word remained: BrahMos. Two rivers pressed into one word: BrahMos. February 12th, 1998, Moscow. -8 degrees, a clear, hard winter morning. The joint venture agreement was signed, not in a room full of flags, not for cameras, but quietly, in the unremarkable way the most permanent things are usually done.